Hi, welcome to IOHR TV. Today, IOHR, who are the official NGO media partner, are here at the World Conference on Statelessness in The Hague. Today, I'm joined by Chris Nash and Flor Reggiardo, who represent different regional stateless networks and are here to share with us their story. Flor, Chris, good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us today. Now, the two of you represent different regional statelessness networks. Could you begin by telling me a little bit about the statelessness situation in your own area?
Sure. So, I'm director of the European Network on Statelessness, a civil society alliance of NGOs, individuals and experts committed to addressing statelessness in Europe. I and a few others set up the network back in 2014 to fill a gap by acting as a coordinating body for organisations coming into contact with stateless people. And I guess, at the heart of our strategy is a recognition of the need to mainstream statelessness, to build civil society capacity to act and to be a catalyst for change. And we've been really encouraged that since we set up, we've attracted 140 members in 41 European countries.
I'm Flor Reggiardo. I'm an attorney at the Center for Justice and International Law. That is a regional organization that litigate cases before the Inter-American System of Human Rights. But also at CEHIL, I coordinate the Americas Network on Nationality and Statelessness. There is a network that was created in 2014 to advocate toward the eradication of statelessness in the Americas. So basically, my work is a combination of litigation, strategic litigation, and also advocacy.
Chris, in 2011, you co-authored a report named Mapping Statelessness in the United Kingdom. Tell me how things have changed in those 10 years since you co-authored the report in 2011.
I think the mapping study was one of those rare examples of being involved in a piece of research which leads to government reform. So for the mapping study, we did both quantitative and qualitative analysis, as well as analysing the legal framework in the UK to see if it fitted, and complied with the UK's obligations under international law. I was struck. I did many of the interviews with stateless people as part of the research, and I think 28 of those had experienced destitution. A third of them had been detained, but they were all stuck in limbo with no route to regularise their status. So it was really positive, encouraging that following the report, the UK in 2013 introduced a stateless determination procedure, which does offer a route. But that's not to say or to pretend that there haven't been challenges in the implementation of that. So we know from our members in the UK and lawyers we talk to that the quality of decision making in the procedure is very poor. It's structurally flawed. There's no access to legal aid, no right of appeal, which means that there are still many stateless people not getting the protection they need and the protection they're owed under international law. And there's other issues in the UK which are sort of frustrating people accessing protection and accessing citizenship. There's very high registration fees for children, for example, which is literally preventing children from being able to end their statelessness and acquire UK nationality. So I guess the summary would be progress has been made, but there's still room for a lot of improvement.
Chris, a high-profile case in the UK at the moment is the citizenship stripping of Shamima Begum. Tell me what your view on this particular case is.
This not only rendered her stateless, but it was a decision which was both arbitrary and unlawful. And I think if we look at the bigger picture, if we look at the evolution of citizenship stripping in the UK, what we see in that is, a dramatic increase in, executive powers. And we really see the use and the misuse of this power to strip citizenship. And the power itself, like gender discriminatory nationality laws in other part of the world, both its origins and its impact are discriminatory because the law is targeted at dual nationals and naturalised citizens. So it discriminates against minorities and people of migrant heritage. And as well as the individual human rights violations, there's no evidence that it's effective as a national security prevention measure, and it also sends a devastatingly dangerous signal to countries like Myanmar that it's okay to strip Rohingya or their citizenship, and in that way it really undermines the international legal framework.
Could you see this happening on a more widespread basis?
in terms of, we know that in 2017 more than 100 people were stripped of their nationality. So that is, that's not just a token use of the power as a populist measure, that's being used as a real tool. I hope it doesn't increase, I hope it's not replicated in other countries, and I think we all need to be vigilant, in asserting at core the fundamental right of everyone to have a nationality, and it's not acceptable for states to take nationality away.
Do you believe there's a need to address statelessness as part of the refugee response?
Absolutely. I think statelessness has been a real blind spot in Europe's response to the refugee crisis. If you look at Eurostat data, this shows that between 2015 and 2017, of all the refugees and asylum seekers arriving in Europe, there were over 100,000 registered as either stateless or of unknown nationality. And the true number is actually likely to be much higher than that. And we did research under our Stateless Journeys project, and what we found is that a failure to identify statelessness is discriminating against stateless refugees and migrants, and it's also, frustrating realization of their rights. So I could give you a couple of examples. So firstly, we found that often when asylum seekers arrive and they have a screening interview, their nationality is often wrongly attributed or wrongly recorded, and their statelessness is not identified. So this, for example, can mean that a Kuwaiti Badoon arrives and has their nationality recorded as Kuwait, when in fact their country of origin is Kuwait. And what this can do is it can mean that the risk of statelessness of their children is not identified. If the parent's not identified as being stateless, then it won't be identified that the child is going to be born stateless, and therefore an opportunity will be missed to apply safeguards in nationality laws to grant nationality to otherwise stateless children. So that's one impact. A second impact which we see is at the end of a procedure, perhaps where an individual is not being recognised as a refugee, and their statelessness only becomes apparent when they're in detention facing forced removal, but they have no country to which they can be returned. And many individuals spend months or even years in lengthy and often repeated detention. And I think if we're looking across Europe, for me it's shocking that despite the fact that all but 4 EU member states have signed up to the 1954 Statelessness Convention, only 6 currently have in place dedicated stateless determination procedures which enable them to identify who on their territory is stateless and owed the rights under the 1954 Convention. And what that means in practice is that individuals are stuck in limbo for many years, unable to access employment, education, to be reunited with family, or to get on with their lives and contribute to the societies in which they live. And that's something which we strongly believe needs urgently to change.
Flor, the Centre for Justice and International Law takes cases to the Inter-American Commission and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. Tell me more about how this works in relation to the statelessness cases that you're dealing with at the moment.
For the Center for Justice and International Law, it's the right to nationality and statelessness has always been one of the most important things that we work, especially in the Dominican Republic. And this is how after that we developed the network. For bringing the cases before the Inter-American system, we always litigate the cases with national organizations. They are the ones that know the facts and are in the ground, and we are the ones that know how to litigate before the Inter-American system. So we chose the most representative cases that can exemplify a gross pattern of human rights violations. This is how we arrived to the 2 cases that are mostly known around the world regarding statelessness, that are the Shani Bosico case and the expelled Dominican and Haitian from the Dominican Republic cases. We litigated these two cases with the same organization in the Dominican Republic, and it's a long strategy. The cases before the Inter-American system take a lot of time, 10, 15 years. Right now, both cases are at the compliance stage. Both of them have a decision from the Inter-American Court. The Shani Bosico case in 2005 and the expelled Dominican and Haitian in 2014. Right now, we are at the compliance stage. We have to develop more advocacy strategies to deal with these cases in order to to get the state to compliance with the reparations that the court order for the victims. And well, right now we are in a moment that the dialogue with the state is very, very difficult. We are trying to develop new strategies to try to talk to them. We had a hearing in February of this year before the court, and unfortunately the state didn't arrive to the hearing. But the court answered really quickly to that situation and the issue compliance decision, where they condemn really the situation in the Dominican Republic. They reiterate that in the Dominican Republic there is still a statelessness, but the answer from the state has been really poor. Like they sustain that there is no statelessness in the country, and that they have adjusted their legislation regarding the right to nationality. So, well, right now we are at that difficult moment trying to develop new strategies with the civil society in the country that work on nationality, but also with other organizations working in human rights.
Flor, can you tell us what you believe are the main obstacles that are standing in the way of countering statelessness in your region?
Right now, I think, well, the Americas in general is a region that, since we mostly have like the jus solis to act with the nationality, there is not, even if we don't have like a complete mapping of the situation, it's not like a big issue in all the region. We have like certain countries that have, of course, the Dominican Republic is the worst situation, but we also have like a situation of statelessness in Chile, and right now, because of the migration and refugee crisis in Venezuela, we are also like beginning to map and monitor the situation in Colombia, because there is a risk of statelessness of children born to Venezuelan parents in Colombia.
Chris, this human rights conference, it's unlike any other because everyone that's here, we all have the same agenda to end statelessness. Tell me what you hope will be achieved here over the next few days.
Bring together so many actors from different regions so that we can share learning experiences but also solutions to the problems we're tackling, which often can be common. If we look at the discrimination as a major cause of statelessness, I was at a session this morning hearing in graphic and disturbing detail about the treatment of the Rohingya people in Myanmar, and within Europe we also see discrimination as a cause of statelessness among Roma, and where we see a combination of technical obstacles combined with anti-Gypsyism, which is really fueling that problem. So I hope that we can learn together at this conference, but I think a really crucial thing is that we are able to then establish structures to continue to work together to advocate for the solutions required. So in short, we need to not only think big, but we need to act big.
Fleur, the same question to you. What's on your wish list? What do you hope will be achieved over the next few days here?
Well, as Chris was mentioned, I hope that, I think this is a really good opportunity to know each other, to also compare the situations, and for national organizations also to know the good practices and bad practices in the countries. But I think it's really, really important to figure out how we will continue to work in this cooperative way.
Fleur, Chris, thank you for joining us, and thank you at home for joining us from the World Conference on Statelessness here in The Hague for IOHR TV. We'll see you next time. Take care.